Good morning. Today is Sunday, October 19th, 2025. Recently, I received an email from an older woman I know, and she has recently been through some very difficult challenges in life. And she asked me, does Jewish law allow MAID, medical assistance in dying, or euthanasia? So I confess at first I was worried that she was asking for herself. And so I tried to respond in a very sensitive way that it is prohibited, but I can certainly understand the desire for someone who is suffering, but it is prohibited. And of course, I plan to follow up in person with this person. But I received a reply to my message, and she said, thanks. She explained, my friend is suffering from ALS. You know, this is a terrible, terrible nightmare, degenerative disease that causes a person to lose control of their body, but their mind is still working. It's a nightmare. And she was asking, this friend is suffering terribly, and she was asking for her friend. A couple of days later, she sent me another email that he had passed away. And I replied that I'm sorry that he passed away, and condolences on your friend's passing, but I am gratified that he is no longer suffering. I want to correct a seriously and dangerously misleading title of a recent article in the Times of Israel. The Times of Israel, a couple weeks ago, had an article, and here's the title. In first, circumventing law, judge okays ALS patient's right to die. He donates his organs. So this is a patient in Israel, of course, and this is the first ALS patient in Israel that was able to donate their organs after they died. And this title is very misleading. So first, I'll share with you the story as it's reported. I only know what's in this article. And then I'll try to explain why the title is misleading and that it is so serious and so dangerous that it's misleading. All right. Michael Podolsky, 44-year-old man with ALS. He died on September 25th at Sheba Medical Center. That's one of the main hospitals near Tel Aviv. After a court granted his request to reduce vital life support. He is the first named individual with ALS to successfully fight for his right to die in Israel in almost 30 years, and the first to donate his organs. Israel bans euthanasia and prohibits assisting or encouraging a patient to die. But the Knesset enacted the Dying Patient Law in 2005, which allows advanced directives to refuse life-prolonging treatment. The law distinguishes between actively causing death and passively allowing a patient to decline or reduce interventions. So now here's a quote from Efrat Karmi. He's the CEO of the Israeli ALS Research Association. And he said in this article, in other countries, patients can be ventilated, meaning go on a breathing machine, a ventilator, and then after a year or two, they can tell their doctor, I've had enough. But Israel is the only country that forbids the right to withdraw from ventilation. Podolsky, that's the patient, who communicated by blinking his eyes at a computer, hired a pro bono lawyer to fight for his right to die. And according to one newspaper, Podolsky said, my life now is hell, and I want to end it. So the judge who was handling this case visited Podolsky in his home to ascertain that he was of a clear mind and he was certain about his decision. And then the judge ruled that a physician could administer sedation to decrease the suffering and then gradually lower the oxygen levels down to 21%, which is the level that we all breathe in the air around us. Now, this is Carmi again. Carmi says, the law is not going to be changed anytime soon, but the message is that every ALS patient has a right to decide how and when to finish their life, even after they make that first decision for a tracheostomy to have a breathing machine. But a judge cannot order its withdrawal because that would be considered actively causing death. Instead, the medical staff can lower the saturation of the oxygen while they keep asking the patient if they agree to this. Okay, that's the story. Now, the distinction I'm going to share with you is subtle, but it is critical. Israel's law is based, in this case, on Jewish law. Though the issue I will raise is a disputed issue in Jewish law, Israel's law is what I would consider to be normative, halacha, and the standards that I personally follow and advocate for. MAID, medical assistance in dying, or euthanasia, it's another word for it, is prohibited according to all authorities in Jewish law. All halakhic authorities forbid MAID. But reducing intervention is permitted in many cases. And I learned this in a personal conversation I had with one of the most respected authorities on Jewish medical ethics today, Rabbi Dr. Abraham Steinberg. For example, now each case is different, and I don't mean to decide anything for anybody. Obviously, if something comes up like this, it's got to be asked individually. So this should just be seen as an example, a general example. For example, you have a patient in ICU, God forbid, with a terminal illness, God forbid. Now, that patient, according to halacha, according to Jewish law, is not allowed to refuse nutrition and hydration. Fluid, nutrition, and hydration. Nutrition, some kind of calories, some kind of nutrition, and hydration, some kind of fluid, because a person cannot live without those things, and refusing that is considered like actively causing the death of the patient. However, even those, and especially any other intervention, can be significantly reduced so that the patient's life is not extended, but they have as much nutrition and hydration as they need, because a patient in that condition, or a patient that has advanced stage ALS, actually needs very little nutrition. They're not moving, they're not expending calories. And a person can actually live with a very, very small amount of hydration over quite an amount of time. Excuse me, I misstated that. I'm sorry, and that's important. A person can live on very limited nutrition for quite a long period of time. It's the hydration that needs to be there, but even that can be reduced even as low as 15% of what was being offered, because that's still enough for the person not to feel thirst and not to feel hunger. And that's why the title of this article is very misleading, because the ventilator was not removed. Rather, the oxygen was gradually reduced to 21%, which is what we all breathe normally. That's enough to be able to breathe. And so this judge did not circumvent the law, which is based in this case on Jewish law, and did not okay the right to die like MAID or euthanasia. From the title, I would think that Israel found a way to circumvent the law and to allow euthanasia. But that is not what happened, and that is not true. But at least based on the facts presented in the article, his treatment followed halacha. It followed Jewish law and did not circumvent it. MAID, medical assistance in dying, or any kind of active euthanasia remains prohibited by all halakhic authorities. And I recognize that there are cases where medical science is not able to prevent terrible, terrible suffering, and I can certainly understand and sympathize and feel sensitivity for a person, God forbid, in that situation who asks for it. But the fact remains that it is prohibited. However, within what is permitted, there are many creative ways to decrease the suffering, even at the very end of life. And that is what Jewish law requires us to do. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.